Well, back here on Earth in Sudan, renewed clashes are threatening to upend a U.S. brokered ceasefire between warring parties. On Monday, the Sudanese army and rival paramilitaries agreed to cease hostilities for 72 hours. But residents have reported ongoing gunfire and explosions inside the capital, Khartoum.
Parts of Khartoum lie in ruins after 10 days of intense battles. The fighting calmed as a ceasefire took hold early on Tuesday. But fear still grips the Sudanese capital. The World Health Organization has sounded the alarm about a potential biohazard after fighters seized the National Public Health Laboratory in the city.
That is extremely dangerous because we have polio isolates in the lab, we have measles isolates on the lab, we have cholera isolates in the lab. So there is a huge biological risk.
Some Khartoum residents have been waiting for days to board buses to take them out of the city, and the cost of tickets has soared. For many who've made it to safety, the ordeal's far from over.
We've been made homeless, displaced, over something that has nothing to do with us as Sudanese. It's between two men and their heavily weaponized armies. But we're paying the really heavy price. It's just angry and frustrated that we've been put in this position.
With Khartoum's main airport a centre of the fighting, foreign citizens are being evacuated through alternative routes in risky operations. They've been describing the perilous days and hours before their rescue.
We realized pretty quickly that there would be no more flights and that we would have to stay in the hotel, because if you went outside, you would get shot. No question at all.
The evacuation was a rather difficult endeavor because the fighting continued, also during the evacuation. We heard gunshots and even planes, MiG fighters which bombed neighborhoods very close to where we were driving.
There are concerns in Sudan that the exodus of foreign nationals will encourage the warring generals to once again escalate the conflict, turning an already dire humanitarian situation even worse, and forcing hundreds of thousands of refugees to flee into neighbouring countries.
And for more now, I'm joined by Mohamed El-Naim. He is a Sudanese researcher in political and economic sociology at the University of Cambridge. Mohamed, it's good to have you back on the program. You know, we are coming up now on almost 24 hours since this latest ceasefire began. I mean, can you tell us, based on what you've heard, I mean, has the fighting stopped?
Well, yeah, I mean, yesterday I was asked if the ceasefire was going to hold, and I expressed skepticism, and I unfortunately woke up today to find that my skepticism was correct. The fighting hasn't stopped. Earlier on in the day, we heard of a lull, but in fact, like a renewed conflict has happened. And I was talking to my auntie earlier today, and she was telling me that in the background she could hear shelling and fighting.
I know that you have been involved in the pro-democracy movement in Sudan. What are your thoughts now when you look back at the past 10 days of fighting and, you know, so many lives that have been lost?
Yeah, I mean, I expressed my frustration before, and I'll continue to express it. The pro-democracy movement was unrelenting in its demand for a complete transition to democracy. It said, and it sounded the alarm about this potential conflict a long time ago, saying that we should be engaging in no partnerships, no negotiations, and no legitimation of these two generals, which, you know, the woman in the previous recording expressed so eloquently, who are fighting right now, and the Sudanese people are paying the price. But the international community and international diplomats insisted on sidelining those pro-democracy voices throughout this whole political process and conferring legitimacy, political legitimacy for these two generals, with the idea that exactly what has transpired wouldn't. And so I guess the feeling as someone who is engaged in the pro-democracy movement is extreme frustration and a hope that after this war is over, we won't be returning to that kind of political and diplomatic orthodoxy which led us to this mess in the first place.
Well, we know that diplomats, aid agencies, they've been pulling out of Sudan, evacuating. What does this mean for the Sudanese civilians who have to remain in the country?
I mean, it could be even worse, because without the pressure that the diplomats have, any inhibitions of total war and destruction will be removed, and aerial bombardments will be more indiscriminate, and things will be more dangerous for most Sudanese people now, who, even as they go on buses after buses to try to evacuate, whether through Ethiopia or Chad or Sudan or Egypt or South Sudan, have no guarantee that they'll even cross the border. So it's a really terrifying prospect for the Sudanese people.
Mohamed El-Naim, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and sharing your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.